just to be clear here, credit carding's the right term, but this was not a slide. This was like a card with a chip that you just
Beep.
you directly
Insert 5 cents here.
This was not a slide.
Yeah,
it wasn't a slide. It would. This
Hey.
this was a card with a chip.
You didn't have to
So
clinch.
it went straight in and came straight out.
Yeah, dang.
I know. Yeah, it could have hurt.
Hello and welcome back to Hindsight is 50-50. I'm the host J-Rod with my co-host the ORG old retired guy. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. Super Bowl opponents are set. Got to watch a lot of that. How much snow did you guys get in that storm last week? How many inches of snow did you get, Jared?
If I had to guess, well over 8.
We had about 8, and then and then it was warm. And so that kind of compressed. And then we got, a couple of snows after that were an inch,
Yeah, we just got another one last night.
We got dusted last night. We only had, that was the first time this year we had to have the driveway plowed.
We've got about, I would say about 3 inches last night.
I was hoping to do it tomorrow, because I got that cargo sled. And I mean, we have a hill that would be a good sledding hill down the back.
Yeah.
Over
behind the shed.
Behind the shed and stuff. That'd be a good hill, especially for little kids. And it's a long run. And I was going to do it for tomorrow because we're going to have Juliana and Jackson. But I was going to take that cargo sled and put a load of wood in it, or put your mom in it and drag it down the hill with the
Just
quad.
Keep making a path.
Make a path, because I think I told you I was at the recycle, taking back cardboard and stuff, and this old guy pulled up. Old guy like me, old.
Yeah, going to the recycle. We're aware.
Yeah, another old guy,
Another hobby at the recycle.
Anyway, yeah, so this other guy pulled up, and he's got 2 plastic sleds.
Let me guess, he's retired.
And he's going, he goes, it's too bad that nobody wants these. He goes, they've been in the garage, the kids are long gone, and all they are is dirty. And I go, there's no holes in them. And they were like nice. They're probably 4 feet long and maybe 15, 18 inches wide. Great for a little kid. Right. And you could actually fit both your boys on one easily. And those things go like rockets. And he goes, it's too bad somebody can't use them. And he's going to put them in the plastic recycling. And I said, they're in good shape. He goes, yeah, they're just dirty. They were in the garage attic. And I go, I'll take them. So they're in the back of my truck. It's been so cold. I haven't cleaned them off yet, but I'm sure that your kids will crap their drawers.
Well, that's just one of those things that's a good story all around, because obviously you benefit, the kids benefit, but that guy's going to have a story that tickles him that he gets to tell somebody as well, because they got put to good use.
It was way cool. And when I told your mom, because I figured your mom would be, she doesn't want me to take anything from anybody else.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's been.
Where's the anthrax?
Yeah. And she was like you. She was all like giddy about it. She goes,
that's really pretty cool.
She goes, that's really cool. I said, yeah, man. And they're still in the back of my truck. But
what you got to do is you got to get JJ out there and have him, you could have him be your little helper and get him to wax the shit out of the bottom of those.
Well, I took him last year when I got that cargo sled because I wanted one to pull around the quad. with the quad. And he was with us, and I got him to go outside, and he had just gotten up from a nap, and I don't think he was feeling very good. JJ was not in. I mean, I didn't even try it with the quad. I was just pulling him around, and he wasn't feeling very good. And again, that cargo sled, that's what it is. I mean, you see them on the Alaskan shows all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody has one. And it's kind of cool because you can haul stuff in it. But heck, you could fit a couple people in there. It's good sized. But that day he wasn't in the mood. But I got a feeling if we got a track made down that hill and we got those sleds cleaned up, those things would be like. I told Jane, I told your mom, she goes, well, I'll get down at the bottom when we have them go. And I go, yeah, but don't stop them. Because when they go down in that valley, they'll hit the edge of that field, and then the hill goes up. That'll stop them
Right.
eventually.
Or
I
any
mean,
of
they're
the
not good.
little like bristles left from the hay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Just like a
that'll slow
natural
them down and
barrier.
stop them. But I mean, that's got to be 150-foot run. That's pretty good for a little kid. I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know that anything will compare to the hill we used to go down at Grandma and Grandpa's, but
Yeah, that was steep.
because that was steep, but it was. I mean, you had like 150 feet where you could have a nice little sledding path, and then you got onto the entrance of that steep hill, and you'd shoot. I mean, how wide is that pasture in the valley? 50 yards wide,
I
30 yards wide,
probably.
and we would go all the way across the pasture and hit the barbed wire fence at the end.
Well, yeah, then you had obstacle sledding when you got
Yeah.
to the barbed wire.
Yeah. Yeah, the
You
first
better
time you got hung
bail.
up by your puffer coat, you're like, "Oh shit,
You
that's barbed wire."
you better bail.
Then we
But
got
yeah,
that little 3 ski one with a wheel on
oh
it.
yeah.
Oh
Well,
man, that thing get moving.
there's no encumbrances here. I mean, that is an open field. So if I can, that's the goal. Now tomorrow it's going to be pretty cold. I think the high is only going to be 18, so we may not take the kids out, but hopefully the snow will stay around and it looks like the weather's going to stay relatively cold. So maybe by the time you guys come down for the Super Bowl, if you get down here early enough, or maybe we can even do it the day after, it doesn't matter, we'll be able to try out those sleds and get a path cut and see how it works, because that's a pretty good long slope, and I got to believe in the
Oh, you're
right
gonna be booking it.
circumstance, yeah, kids would be motoring, maybe even too fast. We'll have to see.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say you might get some steam going down there.
But so anyway, I got sidetracked. You know, I honestly I felt sorry for the 49ers. I did.
Well, Purdy
I
got hurt.
Purdy got hurt. Did you watch the game?
No, I did not watch either game that happened, but I did watch the like full 25-minute recap where it shows um, essentially every single drive, but not every play. So like the little 2 yard plays you don't see, but the bigger plays and the punts and all that. So I got to see like a simulation of the game, if you will.
Well, here the Niners have lost, they lost Trey Lance or whatever his name
Yeah.
is, who they named the starter, and then they still have Garoppolo. Well, then Garoppolo's gone. They're both gone for the year with foot injuries or lower leg injuries. I can't remember if Lance's was an ACL or not. So then they bring in this Brock Purdy, this Mr. Irrelevant that we've talked about. He's not lost a game miraculously, and Shanahan had choreographed things, I think, in a masterful way. Well, when Purdy got hurt, Josh Johnson came in. Now, Josh Johnson, he's one of those guys, you got to give him a ton of credit. I think he's played for 14 NFL teams. So he's hung around a while.
But he's one of those guys that scraps to just make a team.
Well,
Like, I mean,
that's
obviously
just
that's a
it.
hell of an NFL athlete. You're still an NFL
Right.
athlete, but like you're the guy who's on the bubble of being cut all season long,
Oh, yeah,
every
always.
season.
And now, with the practice squads, the way they've made those, so you don't have to be a 1 or 2 year player. You can be a longtime veteran and be on the practice squad. that guys like him can continue to hang around. And, you know, when he came in, it was just awful. It was just awful. I mean, my friend Woody, I had text him during the game when Josh Johnson was in there, and you could see it wasn't going well. And I said to him, I go, "You better loosen up." Now Woody's in his 80s. I go, "You better loosen up. You might be playing quarterback for the Niners in the second half." And his response was, I think I sent it to you, but it just cracked me up. Now this guy is 80 some years old, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't know the exact age, but he's at least 80. And his response after I said, "You better get loosened up," he said, "Brother Johnson," meaning Josh, "should be unrolling hot jocks in the locker room, not playing quarterback."
Well, I mean, they eventually so Purdy hurt
Elbow.
his ulnar tendon or something, and they're hoping it didn't rupture. So he has to go in for an MRI. But I mean, yeah, it's the inside of your elbow, and it's like he can't throw the ball. Johnson was so bad they brought back Purdy, and they were just handing the ball off because he couldn't.
Well,
throw
they
it.
had McCaffrey running the Wildcat for a little bit, and they thought they might stick with that
I
because
felt bad for McCaffrey because one,
I
he
did too.
finally got out of Carolina and had a chance this year, but two, that dude was playing balls out and just trying to put it. I mean, he was doing his best
Oh
effort
yeah,
to put an NFL team on his back, which is
yeah,
incredible.
and you know, I just on the second defensive play, Fred Warner got hurt. Now, if he's not their best defensive player, maybe Nick Bosa is. But if he's not their
He's one of the
best,
best middle linebackers
he's
in the league.
1A.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is all pro. He's not Pro Bowl. He's first team all pro. Now, he came back. I don't know how much that affected him because the Niners hung around for a bit and then it started getting lopsided when they just couldn't do
Well, you don't have an
anything.
offense, and you're
Yeah.
playing against one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL.
And that
So it's
team's
like,
hot.
yeah, and
They're
when they're
hot.
constantly moving, and you can't get your defense off the field because your offense
Yeah.
can't even get a first down,
Well,
it's like
then,
you just
I
get this
watched
unbearable
the
wave.
second game, and I'll tell you, Joe Burrow is a man. That guy, he's really good.
That to me may have been the Super Bowl.
It very well could have been. And Mahomes, you could tell Mahomes was still hurt. I mean, he did some Mahomes things. But when I watch Travis Kelce play, and I think he's the best tight end in the league, I think George Kittle is really close when he's healthy, especially the second half of this year. He's come back and been healthy, and he's a game changer. Travis Kelce plays basketball on the football field. Like he literally boxes guys out, and he's a great athlete. But it is just, I've always had been enamored with the tight end position anyway. And he is a willing blocker. He's not a great blocker, but he's such a good athlete and he plays basketball on the football field. I mean, he literally, because he's so big and he's fairly fleet of foot, he like boxes guys out. He'll go drop into this, a hole in the zone or a dead spot and
Go
just
ahead.
like screen everybody off.
It
And
seems to me like he either studied a lot of film or actually has a relationship with Tony Gonzalez because he plays a lot like him.
yeah, that's true. And Tony Gonzalez, people forget this. Tony Gonzalez played basketball at Cal and was good. Antonio Gates played basketball at
Yep.
Kent State.
He was always good
And
at box down,
I
high
want to
pointing
say
the
they
ball.
went to the Elite Eight, but Kelce plays like that. Now, I just read Jason Kelce for
He's
the
the center
Eagles.
for the Eagles. Yeah.
It's the first time brothers have met, like the Harbaughs met as coaches.
But this
But
is
this
opposing
is the first
teammates.
time a
Yeah.
brother has played against his brother in the Super Bowl.
And they also have a podcast together in which a lot of their
You know,
topics
I
are about
knew
the
that.
NFL. And they're both great, like light-spirited guys. They're
Yeah.
funny, they have a good time.
Well,
But
Travis Kelce's done like dating reality shows. I think it was called
yeah,
Dating
he's a
Travis
little more
Kelce.
of a playboy for sure, but Jason Kelsey is, I mean, not like intelligence wise, but just in his like grit and the way he talks and all that, he's a little more like get her done. Like that's
He makes you feel like he's kind of basic, doesn't he?
yeah, but like in a good way. Like he's just a
Yes,
simple
yeah.
guy living his dream.
No. And man, having a good time doing it
And
and
he's
doing
a
it
hell of an
very well.
athlete. I mean, he's small, but he can motor. I mean, he can
And
move.
and you know, and Jason is on what a lot of people say is the best O-line in football.
Yeah, well, they actually tried to they talked about this on their podcast, and Travis was trying to get Jason to give away his secret because Travis was saying that the QB sneak is the easiest play in football, and he goes, "No, it's not. It's the most complicated." That's what Jason was saying, and he's like, "No, dude, it's the simplest play. All you do is snap it and lean forward." And he goes, "No, it's not." He goes, "There's so many little intricacies and things that you do to make sure that it works every single time." He's like, "Well, tell us." And he's like, "I am not giving away our secrets." Well, I watched the highlights of their game, and when they need a sneak, they get like 4 yards, not one. I mean, it's whatever they're doing, it's weird, and they're getting it done.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like he doesn't chop block or high block. He like hits at the belt line, but Jalen gets into a deep squat where he's actually leaning back instead of forwards. And so it's like the ball gets put to him so fast he can start a sprint within that one step. And I mean, if you've seen him sneak it, they might be on the 3 on second down going for a sneak, and they'll get into the end zone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's like I said, he's a gregarious guy and he's very likable. Well, I don't know,
He's a lovable caveman.
I don't know if they're still dating, but did you see his girlfriend that he dated for a long time?
No.
Her name is Kaylee Nicole. She's African American. She's extremely hot. And I think now he's
You're talking about Travis.
yes.
Okay, because I
Yes.
thought Jason's married with kids.
I'm sure he
Hey,
is. I'm sure he seems like the type to be. But yeah, Travis is who I meant. But yeah, he's done like these dating shows. I think they're on VH1, dating Travis Kelce. I mean, he's having fun with life. He is,
oh, he is.
and he's doing
And he's a
very
sharp
well.
dressed man, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
he's doing
He's,
very
and his
very
brother gives him
well.
shit about it too, which I love. Like they have that genuine like brotherly bond where they can give each other shit back and forth, but it's all in fun. And it's good to listen to. I don't actually listen to the whole podcast, but they have like snippets and all that all over YouTube, and I look at that and they're pretty late spirited. I'm sure they're happy to play against each other because this is one of the things they've always wanted to do. Because people had asked them if they'd go on the same team, and they both said they're happy where they're at, and hopefully they get to play each other. So I mean, they're obviously excited, but it's also unique because they don't get to play against each other. They both
Right.
play on the
They
same
both
side of
play
the ball.
offense. Yeah.
So it's like they can still want to win, but want their brother to do well. Like it's kind of an interesting scenario, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's way cool. And it's like in little bitty Manchester, Michigan. This was I was pretty proud of this. You guys, in your own way, you three boys, you're all good athletes and locally. Again, within our little pond. And that was way cool. I can't even imagine having two, kids who both played in the NFL and then play each other in the Super Bowl. I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but what do you do? Do you cut a jersey in half
Oh, you
and get
gotta.
one number from each one of them and sew the jersey together so you got a green and red jersey that's a number that's like their two combined?
You have to. Yeah, you have to do
Or
something
you
like
just
that.
pick whatever their number adds up to?
Yeah, you have to do that. That's the, you know, that would be the politically correct way, but I think that'd be the smart way to do it. But yeah,
Well, there's
and
so many
again,
people like that in the NFL, though. Like if you look around, and I think it kind of goes under the radar because announcers will say it, and sometimes it just doesn't register with me. Like I don't think about it in the moment, or I forget by the end of the season. But it's like, although that's like the top 1% of athletes that make it, or smaller. Like 30% are cousins or some sort of related.
oh
It's
yeah,
like
there's a
it's like all the
connection.
same genetics.
Well, and
So
you think about it, when the Harbaughs coached against each other, that's even more finite. That's
right.
even more incredible because there's only 32 of those jobs. I mean, there's
Well, but
53 players on
together
32 teams,
you put
but there's
together
only
Jim's
2.
resume though, and that's what's bizarre. Is not only going to the Niners, but he was an NFL quarterback that
Yes.
then became an NFL coach, that then made it to the Super Bowl, that played against his brother in the Super Bowl.
I mean, that's even more amazing because there's only 32 of those jobs. But
Right.
that's I mean, this is incredible, and I'm sure the Kelseys are like they do, are gonna have fun with it, and they should. What a cool thing. I mean, this is I don't think I'm not a big Jalen Hurts fan, and I can't tell you why. I just
I
and you know
like
what?
his demeanor. He never has struck me as the build or the prototypical NFL quarterback. So I'd never have had probably the faith that I should have had that he would succeed. But the way that he carries himself, handles himself, even when he got benched for Tua at Alabama, he
That
was
was
always there
incredible.
supporting, not talking shit. And then he did the same thing to Tua that Tua did to him,
And then
in
he
the championship game. So
and then he transfers to Oklahoma and blows it up there,
yeah, so he's
and
always
when
he's
Philly drafted him, they had Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz at that time they thought was still good. I'm not
right.
sure if Carson Wentz is any good now at all. But at that
He's
time,
good at
everybody
throwing
thought,
picks.
and when they drafted Hurts, because I remember lots of people said he's a third or fourth round pick because of those things, because of his size. But he's a great athlete, obviously. He's got, all those intangibles, like you
Well, I
said.
think people were watching what happened. God, I can't think of his name, but the QB in Arizona, the little mobile guy.
Kyler Murray.
Yes, I think people were watching Murray, and they were like, "Yeah, there's the flashes of super talent, but not having the consistency, it's not going to take you anywhere." I think
Well,
people feared that with Jalen, but he's a lot calmer than most. One of the things I actually saw with him recently, he went on the Kelsey Brothers podcast,
okay.
and they were talking with him, and they were talking about how most QBs around the league and in college hate Jason Kelsey's snap because it's high and it's fast and like blazing fast, like break your fingers fast. And they all hate it because they're jamming their fingers, dropping the ball, or if they miss it, it's not a bobble. It's like it'll bounce off your chest and go past the line. It's coming back that fast. And he's just like, but Jalen gets it. And Jalen just looks at him. He's like, it's all good, baby. Had to get used to it, but it's all good. And it was like real calm. And he's like, but you know why it's that fast, right? And he goes, because you want your fucking hand back. He's like, yeah, that's it. And it's like just little things like that where like you're a young QB in the NFL, and obviously he's a cool laid back personality, but it's like he's not bitching to the veteran lineman about his snap getting him to change it because he's QB1 now. He's going, you just fucking get it back here and I'll figure out what you're doing. It's
The
like
you br-
I'll handle
when
it.
you brought up Kyler Murray, again, I don't know either one of these guys personally. When I saw how Hurts handled the Tua thing, I that was admirable what he did.
Yes.
and it gives you a feel for what kind of person he is. Again, not knowing either one of them personally, but you get the feel from or I do, from everything that I hear about Kyler Murray, is that he's not that guy.
He's the
He's
opposite.
he's very self-centered. It's all about me. He's got this giant guaranteed contract now, which, their general manager quit and their coach got fired, and
Right.
and they're still stuck with that. Now,
Well,
can he be
nobody
saved?
with his success or lack thereof, nobody's gonna pick up that tab either.
Well, that's just it. You especially if you appear to be a jerk, you're untradeable. I mean, you have a contract that nearly makes you untradeable, but because of your the demeanor that people see, and like you said, he's the anti Jalen Hurts. He's the opposite.
Well, and
When you
Jay
see that, and I don't know that that's true, but everything I hear is that he's a diva. And it's like, dude, you don't have any skins on the wall yet. You don't deserve to be a diva,
right.
you know.
He's
And
always been the flashiest thing, and he acts like it. But with Jalen, one of the cool things about him too, I think it's the high school he went to. He had the squat record there, and
oh yeah, he looks stout.
he still squats with the offensive line, and they're like, because he used to be a power lifter before he knew he was going to play football forever. He used to be a power lifter, and I mean, obviously he's a strong guy in general, but his bottom half is just
Oh yeah. Oh,
built. I mean, that
he's
dude
chiseled.
generates power like he's a major league pitcher. You know how the ones with huge
Oh
thighs
yeah.
and bubble butts just get that extra steam on it. It's like he's built like that, and I wonder if that's going to be one of the things that allows him longer term success, because you don't see a ton of quarterbacks built like that, but it's like with his foundation being so stable, if people are grabbing at your ankles or you're running away, it's like all these little things, they kind of hurt a little bit less, and your balance is a little bit better, and you're generating your power on your throw from your legs, so you're less likely for the shoulder or elbow injury. And a lot of those touch passes again are going to have a little more oomph but still have the touch from your arm. So I'm curious to see how it plays out, because you don't see people built like that at his position very often.
I'm not sure his shoulder's right yet. It doesn't look right to me. And I know, and he had enough yesterday, certainly. And and they've got a good running game and a good old line, and they have some stars on defense. They really do. They've really got some folks on defense. I mean, people forget about Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox is a really good D lineman. Brandon Graham's been a really good D lineman for a long time,
Yeah,
and
very
he's still
consistent.
good. And Ndamukong Suh's a backup. He's a rotational guy. That's a pretty good guy to have as a rotational guy. And this Hassan Reddick, who was a very high draft pick, who kind of was a bust in Arizona, went to Carolina and kind of resurrected his career. He was out of Temple. Well, Temple's in Philly. And now he's back home, and he like tied for the league lead in sacks. I mean, he's had a great year. They have some stars. So I don't know if the show doesn't look right to me, but I don't know if they don't have enough to do it, with his shoulder not being 100%. It sure looked yesterday like they
Well,
do.
he also has an interesting, I don't know if it's a play style, mechanic, or ability, but QBs bring different things to the table. And like with Joe Burrow, for instance, his guys probably, and at least in my opinion, high point the ball better than anyone in the league. And I mean across the board, his receivers. And it's because, yeah, they might get hit in traffic or any of that, but when they're one-on-one on the outside, he's going to give them a shot, just like you would in college. It's like, look, man, I don't care that it's
Oh
first
yeah.
down. We'll take it deep. I'm going to give you a chance, and not all quarterbacks do that. Well, with Jalen Hurts, one of the ways that I think he's earned rapport, I mean, not only does he have a great receiving crew, and AJ Brown's just a freak, but I think the way he's earned rapport with them, and it's not just been since his shoulders hurt. If you go back and look all season, he will throw a ball short to their inside hip where they have to slide and catch it consistently, and it stops them from taking big hits. And so
Yeah.
I think his receivers aren't afraid to cross the middle. They're not afraid to go do this stuff, and they know he's going to get it there. And he's like, "Hey, man, if you scoop it before it gets to the ground, I'll keep putting it there so you don't get hit." And it's almost like an unspoken rule they kind of have with each other. And if you go back and watch his games, unlike any quarterback I've seen, he tucks that ball low inside into the ground consistently and gets his receivers to slide and not get hit.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
like I said, this could be a really entertaining Super Bowl. I hope so. You always hope for it to be a
I
good
hope it's
game.
as good as Kansas City versus the Cincinnati. I
Yeah,
hope it's as
yeah.
good.
Now, as we get to the end of football, and I dread the football withdrawal
The
because
woes. Yeah.
yeah, because I like it far and away better than any other sport. And I know I've said I love college better than pro, but I still like pro a lot. I just like football. But as we're getting to the end of that, I've kind of lost track of the NBA. I really have. I used to watch it a lot, and now, with the games on all the time, I don't even watch college like I used to. I'll watch bits and pieces of a Michigan game now and then, a college game. I made it a point to try and watch. I believe I was watching the Bucks and the Lakers, and I tried to watch it for a few minutes. I can't stand to watch the game. I mean, I traveling and this is an old guy rant, okay? I was a high school basketball player. Had some good high school teams. Never sniffed playing college ball at any college. So I just remember it from those days. That's as far as I went. This they call him the Greek freak, this Giannis Antetokounmpo, the guy for the Bucks.
Yeah.
He he takes 4 steps every time he catches the ball, and they don't call traveling. He dips his shoulder to throw people out of the way. Well, again, not just in my day, but 20 years ago. That's a charge. And even though the NBA has kind of always winked and nodded and allowed 3 steps, they don't allow 4. That guy shuffles his feet, and I mean, you might as well not make him dribble at all. And it's not just him. I mean, to me, it's just turned into all they want is splash plays. Nobody, well, I shouldn't say that. That's not a fair statement. I think very few guys. Now the athletes are impeccable. I wouldn't. They're incredible. They're huge. They're big. They're fast. They're well coordinated. They're all these things. But if it's not a 3-point shot or a dunk, it's almost like they're not interested. The mid-range jumper no longer exists, pretty much. Free throws are an afterthought because there's a lot of really bad free throw shooters. And then these things like traveling and that, they don't get called anymore. And that's, people adapt, and I understand those changes. But when I watch the lack of defense and I watch the lack of fundamentals and the free throw shooting is not good, I'm not a big fan of watching women's college sports or the WNBA. I've never watched a full game of either of those leagues. But when you do watch that, especially women's college at a good college program, South Carolina, Tennessee, Michigan's been good lately. Fundamentally, they play well. They make their free throws, they move their feet on defense, and they make open threes. And their fundamentals are a whole lot better. And it's just, I find it aggravating to watch these guys who, my brother and I had a conversation about it yesterday. Because they're so big and because they're so fast and because so many things happen above the rim, it's almost too easy for them. It's almost too easy for these guys. And again, if it's not a 3 or a dunk or a swat, like a block swat, they're not interested, it seems to me, in grinding on defense, or very few people are, and moving their feet, and practicing their free throws enough to make 80% of them, which should be pretty
I
darned
think you
easy.
just need to change the game because they're so big and so fast now compared to when the game was created that it's like yeah, I mean, I
Something.
don't know what the change would be, but it's almost something like for women, it would be a lot more realistic for them to play on a 9-foot rim. But for men, it might need to be at 11 or 12, but then make the court 2 feet wider and move the 3-point line back another foot.
Something. Well, and again, like you said, people will adapt to that, and that's okay. But when I see now again, I'm not saying it should go back to the 70s, when the early 70s when I played high school basketball. But I'll tell you what, it was 2 steps, buddy. When that second foot hit the ground, that was a travel, and it got called. And it wasn't just in high school. That was in the college game. Now in the NBA, you kind of always got 3 even back then. But you didn't get 4, and sometimes it just looks ridiculous. And I mean, the Greek Freak, and I mean, I'm sure he's been the MVP. I know he's won a title, and he's a great player. But it's like I watch him catch the ball, and he'll literally take 4 steps turning around and dunk. And it's like, that's I don't know, that's not the basketball that I know,
No,
and
it's too easy. And I mean,
it's
like
hard for me to watch.
any athlete can take one dribble from the 3-point line and make a layup. And any big athlete can make a dunk. But you can't get around 2 to 3 people in that 1 to 2 steps. So you're sidestepping, shuffling, gathering, all of that, and it's like, but we still only have one dribble. I
Well,
don't.
yeah, or none. I mean, catch the ball with your back to the
Well,
basket.
how many times do you see it where someone catches it on a fast break to do, like a tomahawk dunk, and they catch it and they take 3 steps with no dribble, and you're like,
Oh, all
"Excuse
the
me?"
time.
I mean,
All the
that shit's just absurd.
and again, these guys, they're talented enough. They don't need all that.
But we've
We
come from an era though, like you look at okay, and obviously Jordan's in there and all that, and there's been exceptions. Don't get me wrong, but you look at like Vince Carter, who's a shooting guard to small forward, and he played a long time in the league. Well, 6'4" to 6'6", that's good. You were good. Now those same positions, it's like well, it's a dime a dozen to have 6'7" to 6'8".
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so my thing is, unless we were to move the 3-point line further back to make it more challenging, which you'd have to widen the court because you'd just be getting too tight on the sidelines. But unless you were to move it back, the problem to me is that 1 to 2 inches in height is a very big deal in matchups. And the same thing with, your width and your weight. Whether your shoulders are 3 inches wider or you're 40 pounds heavier,
Oh,
it's like
no
with
question.
guys getting so tall, so wide, and so heavy, the paint is so clogged. Taking 3 feet off your shot isn't worth it to get 2 points when you cannot go into that pile of bodies 3 feet further back and get 3 points. So you almost need to penalize people by moving that 3-point line further back so the shot's substantially more risky and not nearly as consistent, but also give the 2-point area a little more space so you can hit a jump shot without running into a 6'11" power forward and a 7'1" center.
Well, they for years, they had the idea of the Olympic lane that's, like, angled. It's not straight down from the circle, so it makes it wider. Well, that only helps if you call 3 seconds.
Right.
They don't call 3 seconds.
Ever.
Never. There's no such thing. I don't even think the rule exists anymore.
I just what blows my mind, okay, and this I find it kind of funny, and I know this is true for sports on like all major sports. But when you're talking about basketball, where the skill is putting a ball in a hole, we have the same size court for 6-year-olds as we do giant NBA players. Like your junior championship golfers aren't playing on the PGA tour, like, and I understand that football's a little bit different, but usually like little kids flag football and Pee Wee isn't a full football field a lot of times. But it's like it's not a big enough court when people, I mean, the way I look at the NFL is by the time you're a grown man, you're somewhere between 5'8" and 6'2" on average would be my guess. Well, there's a lot of NFL players that are between 5'10" and 6'2". Now there are
Right.
some bigger, but they're not taking up substantially more space on the field than you are, like, let's say when you're in high school. But when you get to the NBA, the difference of having all of those large bodies on the same court
That's fair.
as a high school basketball team,
Yeah.
it's not the same game. I mean,
Right.
you got to
You
make the
got 8
court
out of
bigger.
10 guys that have 7-foot wingspans on the court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're shooting a 15-foot free throw when their arms reach halfway there.
Yeah.
Obviously they're not holding it
It's
straight out, but
just
you get my point. Like,
yeah, it's just I can't watch it. I'm not interested. And again, I admit for NBA fans, the athletes are incredible. I mean, they are incredible. They're big, they're fast, they're coordinated. I mean, you see guys, 6'10" guys just, pull up on a fast break and just shoot a three, nothing to it, and drain it. That's the game's changed too much for me to like, and maybe that's just an old guy thing. I don't know, but I tried because
no,
knowing
I don't think
football's
it's an
coming
old
to
guy
an
thing.
end. What? So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think it's an old guy thing. I think
Well,
it's a purist thing.
maybe,
If you do
maybe.
not represent, not just respect, but if you don't represent the fundamentals of a sport, are you playing the sport? No.
I- It's just really hard. It's just really, really hard for me to watch, and I still
What's basketball without traveling or goaltending? It's not basketball.
I'll watch I'll watch some, not a lot anymore. I used to watch so many of the NCAA tournament games, I'd forget which games I watched.
Mm-hmm.
And I still watch a lot of the tournament. I do because it's just exciting but the pro game, I just have no interest in watching. I really don't.
Well,
And
and let's be honest, though. I mean, a lot of that isn't just their play; it's the loathing of their personalities and all the shit
that's
they got to
fair.
pull off the court.
That's fair. And it
It's
seems
like,
like
and
there's
I
plenty of
there are
that.
plenty of players in the NFL who do bad shit, but a lot of times what you're hearing about is who is the Walter Payton Man of the Year at the end of the year, and it's like, but in the NBA, it's like, oh, so and so is embracing gender and critical race theory, and they're opposed to this, and it's because they're purple instead of being orange, and it just it it's so much shit where it's like, I understand you are paid to entertain, but the entertainment you're being paid for is not the antics. It's the game.
Here's something, and I think we may have talked about this before, and it's just an opinion. You know, LeBron James came right out of high school. He's obviously had a fantastic career. He's going to become the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, which is an incredible feat. He's an incredible athlete. I mean, when you look at that guy is 6'8", 260 pounds, and he is, sculpted steel still. And he's what, 38 years old? I'm guessing, but I
Something like
think
that.
something around there. He has never been in trouble. That guy has never, he's never done like off the court crap, whether it be fun babies or, gambling, or he has been clean as a whistle. And I really do believe this, Jared. I really do think this is true because I think it's true for me. I have never embraced him, and I think a big part of it was his my I'm taking my talents to South Beach. That bullshit. And I don't think I've ever gotten over it. And there's jokes about it. I
Well,
mean,
he's becoming hated now just because he can't get the fuck off of social media, and everything he posts is about a hate crime. There's been several times where he's been blatantly wrong and it's been proven and there's no apology. And it's just like he is one of those polarizing figures that is creating and making the divide much more vast than it would. There's no denying there's racist shitheads on this planet. We all fucking know it. But the 1% of us that suck don't represent the mold. So quit getting on the world's largest stage and pretending that's a real fucking thing when you're being paid millions of dollars to put a ball in a hoop. And that's where I lose respect for him. Like Jordan. Jordan was a prick, but he wasn't doing all this shit. And that's why the older I've gotten, the more I like Jordan. And I didn't like him that much when I was younger. And you can tell he's a prick. But the social media era wasn't around then, or at least not as big.
sure.
And so you didn't have to deal with it. But now it's like, I mean, someone needs to grab his phone and go, dude, the only person that can hurt you is you, and you are determined to do it.
Well, I read and I researched it and couldn't verify it, but I read that he is the first active athlete in pro sports who's a billionaire. LeBron is. Now,
Yeah,
if he's
I thought I
and then
read that too.
I tried to research it, and it's hundreds of millions. I didn't verify the billion, but that was in an article somewhere, Yahoo or something, and I'm maybe it wasn't them, but so I don't want to say that it was, but I read that somewhere that he
On
was the first
CNBC,
active
NBA
athlete.
superstar LeBron James is officially a billionaire.
There
He
you
is the
go.
first ever active NBA player to reach billionaire status. The only other NBA star to become a billionaire is Michael Jordan, who didn't attain the status until 2014, more than a decade after he retired.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I don't know if that has anything to do with my argument or not about not being able to watch the NBA, but he's not to me, and I don't think I'm alone. I really don't think I'm alone. I hear local sports talk about it, and they refer to everybody's got a joke about taking my talents to South Beach. People remember that, and
Yeah,
I don't
not
know if that's
one, not two, not
yeah.
three.
Oh my God, that was so.
It does say his
Oh,
net
it
worth
was
is
just so
estimated
bad.
1.2 billion, and he's made 385 million from the league.
And and again, the guy's never done shit off the court. I mean, in a negative way. I'm
Right.
talking about like criminal acts or anything like that. He's kept his nose clean. He's had an
What
admirable
he's
career
done
and,
as
and made a
far
ton of
as
money.
legality and staying out of the very sticky situations in the public eye from being a high schooler to now is astonishing.
Amazing. It's truly
But I
amazing. So you got to
just
give him
still
credit for
think
that.
the social media warrior is just makes you a piece of shit.
I I would agree. I would agree
Anyone
with
who's
that.
not open to public discourse, anyone who's not willing to have a conversation which their mind can be changed or they can be proven wrong, is weak. And I will never take that statement back. You internet warriors post something where they can troll on others, they can make a statement publicly, they can do it anonymously if they want to and not even have to put their name behind it. But it's like you're doing something not allowing for a rebuttal in a situation that makes you uncomfortable. Well, then I don't think you have the right to share that opinion. I understand people argue with that, like you have the right to do whatever you want, blah blah blah. But it's like, okay, fine. I don't respect you for the right to do that because what you're doing has no balls and it shows no dignity. So starting shit online to be an internet warrior, talking about some sort of problem with the system that you clearly have nothing to do with as a billionaire, you can go ahead and fuck off and keep your mouth shut because you don't know. You don't. And you're not willing to sit down with anyone and have a civilized conversation where they can prove your statistics wrong. And
Well,
that to me is childish. That's someone running their mouth because they can and no one can tell them to shut up.
and there are so many things, even along those lines. It would crack me up when a major, like, entertainer, actor, actress, musical artist or whatever endorses a political candidate. It's like, what do I care what you like? But there are people that will vote for that guy because Michael Jackson liked him, you know, or, Alec Baldwin liked him. And it's like, and I don't feel that way. And I know you don't feel that way, but I really do think that. And so I think and I'm not defending him at all, but there are a lot of people that read those things that you said he'll post, and they take that as gospel, and they're
Becomes
in
their
lockstep
truth.
with
Yeah.
him. And that's a good way to put it. It's their truth.
Well, and so many people are uneducated about things that, maybe it's their fault or maybe it's not, whatever you want to call it, for not educating yourself and doing your own fact checking. But I mean, it doesn't just cover the social media aspect. There's movies that do it.
Speaking of movies, I know we wanted to talk about a couple. And how's that for a transition?
I like it. I mean, obviously, we can go down the dark road there, so it's not a bad one.
Yeah, yeah. But I know you had mentioned, when we were talking beforehand, Memento. And I watched that show a while ago. And when it first came out, it was made in 2000. And I actually watched it again fairly recently, within the last month. It has Guy Pearce in it, and we were talking about that too. He was in LA Confidential. He's been in movies, and I like him. He plays a good prick, but in this movie, he plays a very sympathetic figure, for a large part of the movie anyway. And it was intriguing. I told you it was one of those that, because I hadn't seen it in a long time, I had kind of forgotten all the complexity of this movie. And it certainly is one that you have to pay attention to. And I, I was kind of getting lost there towards the end, when they finally wrapped everything up. And I was kind of getting lost as to what was happening amongst all the questions your mom was asking me as we were watching.
Yeah. It is one of those movies where they give you the pieces, but there's 50, and if you don't remember all of them, it won't make sense.
It just
And so watching it twice might be, you know what I mean, like twice in a row, you might pick up a couple
oh,
of things you missed, but
I
it's
do that. I do that with a lot of movies. The first time I watched Pulp Fiction, I didn't like it, and I love that movie. But the first time, I was just like really confused. Just the short summary of this movie for those who haven't seen it: Leonard, Guy Pearce, is tracking down the man who raped and murdered his wife. The difficulty, however, of locating his wife's killer is compounded by the fact that he suffers from a rare, untreatable form of memory loss. Although he can recall details of life before his accident, Leonard cannot remember what happened 15 minutes ago, where he's going, or why. So consequently, in the moment, he writes himself notes. He even gets tattoos, so he'll
yes.
remember. so he can pick up the search because his short-term memory is gone. Um, Real intriguing movie. You give your thoughts on it, Jared.
No, I mean, I thought you explained it really well. It is intriguing because of his inability to preserve thoughts constantly, or recent memories, new memories. Um, it constantly gives him this anxiety, and so multiple times, if because he gives himself those tattoos homemade, but he will jot notes down or whatever on a napkin, anything he has. And so when something happens that is somehow linked to the murder of his wife, and he knows that he needs to remember this to be able to progress forward to find one of the killers. Um, he's constantly in a scramble to write it down, to find a place to put it,
Right,
to store it, because
right.
he knows he's going to forget,
Where he
and
can
that's
find it the next day.
exactly
Yeah.
because so I don't think you covered this, but and when his wife is strangled and all that, he actually comes into the room and there's two men in there, and he gets hit in the back of the head by one. Now he killed the first one, but the second one who hit him in the head got away. So he's tracking him down for this whole movie. Um, and so that's the lead that he's chasing, because the detectives who got there refused to believe that there was a second intruder. So he's
Well,
chasing this on his own, but he can't form new memories, and that's that panic. That to me is the most captivating part of the
it's
movie. Is like he
compelling.
finds out something so important, but he can't just put it anywhere. Like, he might, if he wrote it on a napkin and stuffed it in his pocket, he might not reach in his pocket tomorrow.
Right.
He might not wear those pair of pants. So he's got to find a place where, like, he might put something in his shoe, or somewhere where it's like, and no matter what happens, he's going to bump into it. So if he doesn't have the time to tattoo it on his body, he'll put it somewhere else where he knows he's going to run into it. And just constantly having to think about those things, that part to me is fascinating. Not to mention, he can't make recent memories. So he's having consistent flashbacks where he's remembering the past and linking it to this new thing he saw, knowing that tomorrow he's not going to remember others, and he's going to have to make the exact same link. So he's got to make sure whatever he writes down is a strong enough word or phrase that he can build the exact same connection to keep his case moving.
It's a really, I think, captivating movie. It's one of those that's complicated and you have to pay attention. You just have to pay attention. And I tend to like that guy. I don't know why. Um, I remember those other movies that he was in, and he played good. Had really good roles in both of those movies. But it's a 2000 movie. It's called Memento, Memento, and it's you liked it. I liked it. It's a mystery kind of thriller like thing. Dark. Um, Seems like I like a lot of dark movies.
I
That's a
mean,
weird,
that makes him interesting.
I guess.
I
But
mean, that's
yeah,
the whole suspense aspect, right?
if you haven't seen that one's worth a watch. And I think it's relatively timeless. I mean, I think like if you hadn't seen that, like it wouldn't be outdated because special effects aren't a big part of the movie. It's you got to pay attention. There's a whole lot of intricacies in the movie, and that one's worth watching. 2000, made in 2000, starring Guy Pearce, and it's called Memento. And then
Very good.
we were talking about. I just saw over the weekend. Your mom and I just watched Top Gun Maverick. And I got to tell you, man, I'm not going to say that I think it was better than the first because when Top Gun came out, I remember that thing was in you didn't have all the streaming services that you have now. And that thing was in the theaters forever. And they would even bring it back. like every year for a while, and and they'd show it for a week at theaters because it was so great and so popular. But and so for its time, I think Top Gun was fantastic. But you had told me how much you liked this movie, and it was I liked it just like that. I mean, I just thought it was. I told you there was a couple of times. I mean, the fighting sequences and the suspense and the intensity of the movie, you know, keep you on the edge of your seat a lot. There was a couple of just like super emotional moments, and I told you, I mean, I'm getting, you tease me all the time how soft I am, and which is true, and it gets worse with age. But there was a couple times in that movie where like I'm welled up. I'm not. I look over and your mom's like full blown crying. I mean, she was like she was in tears, crying, and she's looking at me going, "I don't know why I do this." But God, that was a good movie. And we had talked about how they had kind of recreated characters from the first one, and Val Kilmer is makes a short appearance in the movie, which is fantastic. Um, it was really, really good. I mean, and that's one of those. Did you see that in the theater?
No, wait, I think it was during like the end of COVID, so we were able to do the in theater rent at home.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that one is one that you absolutely have to have the surround sound set up. And because I mean that would have been a good movie to see in the theater, I'm sure. Although it would have probably been too loud for me. But
It was a loud movie, that's for sure.
yeah, I mean,
Man,
but oh my
now that
God,
you say that, did I see that in the theater?
I was enthralled by that movie. I thought it was fantastic. And by the way, Jennifer Connelly still getting it done, buddy. She's
I may
still
have seen that in the theater because I remember someone telling me that that movie was too loud, and I went, and it was great, but it was way too loud.
I thought I recall you telling me that. But yeah, Jennifer Connelly is still getting it done.
Yeah, you know what? You're right because I remember telling you how good it was, but I specifically said, I go, I know your ears are more sensitive than mine. Do not go see it in the theaters. Yeah,
Oh,
I remember having that conversation because I mean I went out with an earache. It was just too loud.
but man, well, obviously at home, but I mean, I have decent surround sound system, and you needed it for that movie. It was great.
Yeah, but in the
Eh,
theater, I don't need to be pushed back by
Oh,
the
that's
fighter
just
jet
it.
in
It's
real life.
they're always too loud for me, buddy. I wear cotton in my ears when I go in there.
I usually I have these things called erasers, and
Okay.
they are the decibel reducing. So they're reusable. They're like a rubber, but you put them in like you would
Okay.
earplugs. Um, and they have a little antenna you use to pull them out. But after you seat them in, you can still hear. So it's not foggy like an earplug or muted. It's just dampened. So it only allows certain decibels inside through the tiny little micro holes that are in it. And I usually bring those, but I didn't have them that time.
You
Um,
know,
but that movie, I was a big fan of it. I still am, and it's one of those. I mean, whether it's better than the first or not is obviously subject to
sure.
whoever's
Yeah.
opinion. But for me, it is not a better movie for its heyday. It's just a better movie. Like, if I
Fair.
were to rewatch it, this one to me is a little more likable, easier to get into, and it's so intense the whole time that it would keep me drawn, as to where the old one was probably more revolutionary or stunning for its day, and it's
That's
still a
fair.
great movie, but it's not what today's movies are. Does that
No,
make sense?
that's a good way to say it, Jared. That's fair. That for its day, that's fair. Because for its day, it was groundbreaking. It really was. Um, it's funny, because I was talking to my brother yesterday about it, and because I just thought it was so good, and we had watched it. I believe we watched it Saturday. And he said, because my brother-in-law, your Uncle Jim, Jane, my wife's brother, he was a F-16 pilot and he retired. He graduated from the academy, retired from the Air Force as a lieutenant colonel. And, he flew F-16 jets and was Top Gun more than once. I mean, Jim was a hell of a pilot in the Air Force. And my brother said, well, would Jim think that the movie's realistic? And the answer that I said immediately was absolutely not. It's like when anything is in your wheelhouse, you
Oh,
can pick out the flaws like really fast.
yeah, he's like, "That thing's falling out of the sky right now." Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that plane won't do that.
yeah. I'm like that with guns, like, when someone shoots and you're like, "Dude, who's got the 75 round magazine in their pistol? What's going on here?"
And if you did that level of insubordination, there would not be a verbal ass chewing. You would be discharged immediately.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
risked,
like,
an $8 million piece of equipment, no big deal. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it's like, so, and you and I have seen that, and we've seen that in movies,
Well,
even
and with
when you
fighter
see,
jets too, you're dealing with technology we don't want our enemies to have. So that to me would
yeah,
make it even more unrealistic than something out like a person going rogue with a firearm is going to be disciplined through the military unbelievably. But when you're going to potentially sacrifice
a $60
US
million
technology,
airplane.
yeah, but US technology behind enemy lines,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Now they don't find your body and then no one's ever heard of the hole that you got stuck
The
in. Like,
GPS coordinates don't exist
yeah,
of the
it's
hole where
funny,
you're
all of our
buried.
compasses spin here. Yeah, there's a lot of dead bodies here.
But
Yeah,
what that was, I just got to say it again. What an entertaining movie. It was high energy. There's a lot of tension. Um, there were clearly some very emotional parts to that movie that far exceeded the original Top Gun in that category for
part
sure.
of the part of the interactions that I liked the most, that were really embraced by this movie, the actor, I don't know his name, but he plays Goose's son in this, Top Gun movie. He is very good at not only connecting to emotion, but also he's very good in the intense moments of movies of being that kind of guy who stands there a little bit stoic and just kind of has that like fuck off look on his face. But Tom Cruise, I mean, I'm sure other people feel the same way. If you watch him throughout his career, he's very fidgety. It's like he can't sit still. He's intense. He wants to get up in your face. That's
Oh
who he
yeah.
is. And this movie allows Tom Cruise to be very like, I have to solve the problem. I have to do this, blah 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 blah, OCD. But then the other guy's like, you need to chill the fuck out. Like, and they play off of each other very well, in that standoffish versus intense nitpicker.
The guy who plays Goose's son, his name is Miles Teller. And I have to say, I had never seen him in a movie before.
Such a
But
good
you
actor.
said he's been in other movies, but
Yeah,
I had
he's
not seen him.
he's in one called Spiderhead, where the guy who plays Thor is
Okay.
kind of like a, I don't want to say an evil doctor, but he's a doctor that's introducing drugs into people's system, and this Miles, actor is one of the main characters in that, in which he has to go down a journey of moral dilemmas because of the drugs that are being put in his system, or he might have to administer in someone else's system. So he dances that fine line very well and shows you the emotional side of it. And he also was, one of the main characters in the newer Footloose remake.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, John Hamm, who everybody knows John Hamm, he was in Mad Men. He's a famous guy. He's been in lots of commercials. And everybody knows who John Hamm is. And if you don't, you'll recognize his face when you see him in the movie. He plays a great prick who
Always.
in the end does the right thing. I mean, and he lets Maverick do the right thing. and he, reluctantly supports him, but and he plays a great prick. Val Kilmer is in the movie just a little bit, but
Well,
he has basic. Go
real quick
ahead.
on John Hamm, he plays the perfect coach in that movie. It's
Yeah,
just like a coach of a gambling QB in football, where it's like, don't throw it, or a coach in basketball,
that's
don't
fair.
shoot it, and then you make it, and he's like, fuck yeah,
Good
like let's
job.
do this, yeah. He does that role so perfectly in that movie, where you just hate him, and at the end, he doesn't punish. He just is like, cool, we're
And
good.
and and when we talked about Val Kilmer, he's not in the movie very much, but he has basically kept Maverick from being discharged his whole
Yes.
career because by the end of the movie, Iceman, Val Kilmer's character in the original Top Gun, is the head of the Pacific Fleet. And so, he's a man of substance and he's kind of watched out for Tom Cruise for Maverick and kind of kept him from being discharged because in all this time, he's still a captain from the original Top Gun until Top Gun Maverick. He's never been promoted because he does these off the wall stunts, which, by the way, your uncle says you pull one of those things, buddy, and you're toast.
Right.
But very entertaining. Great soundtrack too. Great music in that movie. I always seem to get enamored by the musical score. Great music in that movie.
Yeah,
And
the biggest thing I can say about that movie is there's a lot of movies that capture the moment well. For this movie, the whole movie is the moment.
that's
It's
fair.
that
Yeah,
intense
it's
the
a good
whole
way to
way
say
through.
it. Yeah, it's a good way to say it. And I said it a couple times. I'll say it again. Jennifer Connelly is still getting it done, bud. Well, we talked about sharing family stories, and I told you one that I wanted to share with you that happened a long time ago.
Yes.
It involved me and your mother, and this was way before she was your mother.
This
This was
doesn't start with, like, when a man really loves a woman, does it?
no,
Okay, I was gonna say, I
no.
know that story, we're good.
This is while I, we may have been engaged, but we weren't married yet, and we went to Cedar Point, the amusement park, on a beautiful summer day. And we're down there and we're having, a great time. We're just having all kinds of fun riding stuff. I mean, at that time, because this is, we've been married 40 years in June, and this was before we were married. So this is probably 41, 42 years ago. So they didn't have obviously all the coasters they have now. They had coasters and they had plenty of them, but they didn't have anywhere near the kind of coasters they have now. And I always like wooden coasters, and the Gemini was great, and the old Blue Streak, they had that, and that was fun. It wasn't a wooden
I'm
coaster,
out.
but it was a fun coaster. But your mom and I rode the Gemini, this wooden coaster, and at that time it was one of the newer attractions. I mean, it had maybe been around a couple years, but it hadn't been around long. And when we rode that, as we were coming down, we go up, you tick, 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 tick up the first grade. And as we come down, her purse is in between us. Her purse just like floated between us in the air. And we're just, cracking up and we both put our hands on it and knocked her purse down. Well, we go through the ride and it, scares the hell out of you. It did me anyway. And we get off the ride and we're like cracking up, still laughing about her purse. And we were looking for a place right when we got off to get those big steak fries with the malt vinegar because
Mhm.
those are famous there. They have those around. And we come up on this place that has those, but it also has bratwursts. And your mom, I have no idea what made her say it, but she said, "Well, what's a bratwurst?" And I
Mm.
go, so I immediately started making fun of her. I started calling it the Gemini instead of the
Yeah,
Gemini,
right.
and because she
Put the
said
emphasis on
bratwurst.
the wrong
Yeah,
syllable.
it's like, and I said, I go, and I remember saying in front of people, because there was people around, obviously, and I said, "Ethel, you're gonna get you're gonna get a bratwurst right after you got off the Gemini," and so she's like red faced and all embarrassed. Well, we get something to we get. I think we did get a bratwurst and some of those fries, and we hang around for a minute. And they have those tram cars that are on cables. That it's just kind of a scenic ride that takes you. You're way up in the air, but you go from one end. You can go from one end of the park to the other. And they're cool, and it's for people, and it's just a scenic ride. It's not scary, but it's a cable car that's elevated. And so we're waiting in line to get on this tram to go back to, I think it was called Frontierland, where they had another wooden coaster and other things. And the line's moving very slowly, obviously, all the turnstiles and stuff. And there was this older couple like my age now, but again, this is when we were in our 20s, middle 20s. And your mom is describing the Gemini, and she's got her hand like if you took your hand, like if you were doing like what the Braves do and the Chiefs do, the tomahawk chop, where your fingers are together and your thumbs right down there, and like it's a chop. She's got her hand and she's mimicking what the Gemini had done. She goes, and she's like talking to me, and we're laughing, and she goes, and it goes zoom, and she runs her hand like down and up. And this older couple, again in their 60s, and this guy wearing Bermuda shorts, her hand in that position went right into his butt crack. And the guy just kind of turned around and smiled.
Yeah. Hey.
And I mean, we're both cracking up.
Good for you. It was good for me.
Your mom's red as a beet, And so then when we get on the tram, we're in the car with them.
No. Well.
So nobody said a word.
I'm Jane.
But, oh my Jane Lee.
Yeah.
So, but nobody said a word,
You should have just said nice ass as you left.
Oh my God. I mean, I think we were shaking, laughing the whole ride on the tram, which is a good 5 minutes. And,
I'm sure they got a good kick out of it too.
Yeah, and these people are sitting right across from us. But anyway, that was your mom. I'll put her on the spot a lot, just saying, things to make her blush. I still do it.
When we went how her personality is. It's like when you guys got in that car, I can almost imagine her saying it, going, "Well, son of a bitch." Yeah, of course. That's like when you make awkward eye contact with someone and then you both end up walking the same way and you're like, fuck.
And dude, it's 2 and 2 and you're right across from each other. You're looking right at each other.
You look me in the eyes after you touch my ass.
When we
should have just sat next to that old man's wife and made her sit next to
It would have been a good move. I didn't think of it at the time, but I'll do that just with her a lot, just teasing her, and she actually, I think, enjoys it. When we went to the polls, to vote last November, it's Manchester, it's small town, and your mom, having worked for the school system, she knows everybody, and everybody knows her. Well, we go into, to vote, and you have to give your ID and that. And because we, neglected to vote in advance, which that was my fault. So we had to vote the day of the election, which was no big deal. So we go in to vote, and, we immediately, like the 3 people that are checking you in, we know all of them. One of them's Tina Way. Another one is Dave Thompson's wife, and then there was another gal that your mom knew all of them. I knew 2 of them, and and I happened to be first, and so I give my ID, and then they pass you on to the next person. And I said to Kim Thompson, I said, she might be a little flustered. I slept with her last night. and, and all three girls start laughing, and your mom just like gets all red faced. She goes,
Yeah, what's she gonna do?
yeah, she goes, yeah, he did.
Oh man.
But I still have fun, but my God, put her doing that zooming thing and putting her hand in that guy's ass obviously 40 more than
Yeah,
40 years later I still
you still
so
remember it?
yeah. I'm sure that guy's dead and gone, man. He was in his
Oh,
60s then. He'd have to be 100 and something now. But yeah, it was just more just
that's so her though to do that.
zany. Well, yes. Yes,
That
that
is
is.
so her. I mean, she's the one that'll bitch about the waitress when the waitress is right there, and then
Yeah,
she doesn't know. And it's
yeah.
like, oh, for God's sake, take the hint, shut up.
Yeah, we're
Like,
gonna get spit in our food.
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
take mine with a cup of tea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you just rub your balls in my sandwich? Yeah.
Yeah. Which comedian is that? That's a good comedian.
Caparulo.
Yeah.
John Caparulo. Did you just put your balls in my sandwich?
I mean, but she is notorious for doing stuff like that. I
But
mean, it's
I will say, in just things like that, she is a good sport about it. Like she'll blush a little bit and she'll get red faced, but she takes it
so she doesn't
well.
run away. Yeah.
And you know what? God bless her because I haven't stopped doing it. And I don't plan on it anytime
No,
soon.
but there is something to be said about that though, because you like, and I've had people say it because obviously I share your mom's sense of humor. I've had people say it about me. It's like you take an awkward moment and you say what everyone is either thinking or needs to hear. So yes, you might embarrass one party a little bit more, but you take a moment that's just unbearably awkward to where people want to die and you make it funny for everybody. And it's like that's all you can do. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that.
Well, next week, and I got to make myself a note about this because that kind of thing, and Alan's like that too.
Yes.
And that kind of thing, I have a story about Alan and Wendy's uncle Vern and I'm going to make a note right now so I don't forget that it's very much like that. And it's, you know, loosening everybody up after a very awkward situation. Um, I'm gonna, I'm gonna make sure and write myself a note so I don't forget to do it next week. And but again, those kind of moments, what do you got to lose? It's
Well,
already.
they're like Chandler-esque moments, you know? Like in Friends, there's so many awkward moments where he's like, "This parachute's a knapsack." Like
Yeah.
he just can't, and he's just fidgeting, but it's like he makes it funny for everybody.
I,
Those are
I
always great
I tell
moments.
you who actually is good at that too is my brother. He'll on occasion he'll do that. It's like there'll be some really awkward moment and he'll say something like totally off the wall that makes everybody laugh.
Yeah. Or you get the person who just goes, "Awkward." Like, it's like, "Yep, yep,
Exactly.
we're all here."
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, like, I crossed the line obviously a little bit more. Like, if I would've seen okay, if Melissa was moving her hand and hit that guy and credit carded his ass cracked like that, I would've looked at the wife and been like, "Do you want her to do it to me too?" Like, fair is fair.
Tit for tat.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not
That's
showing you
how we
my
say
tat.
hello.
I'm not showing you my
Mm.
tat.
Yeah, she's just friendly. Like, that's probably
Well,
more along
now
the lines of what
see,
I'd have
I
said. It's
could,
just leaned in and gone, "She's just friendly."
but I can picture Melissa taking that well as well.
So wow, she's such a good sport about it.
Yeah. Like because she would do that. to you. She would put you in that spot if the situation was reversed. So
Oh.
she doesn't take offense if you do that back.
Oh, she would have, if especially like obviously if I did it to a woman, it would be a lot worse scenario.
Well,
But if I had
yes.
done it to the man, she definitely would have said something sarcastic. Like, there's no way I'm getting out of it without some sort of gay poke. Like that's she can do that pretty good. She can hang with the best of them for sure, and
Oh, yeah,
does
she's
not
got the
let me get
sense of
away with
humor.
it.
I would
Oh,
think that she would take that kind of thing very well. Yeah, that she would, she like your mom does. Your mom, she's lived with it for a long time, and so she, kind of
see, Melissa,
rolls with the punches.
because she's more of a sniper, she doesn't do it as often. Sometimes they sting a little bit worse. And I mean, she's a good sport and her sense of humor is funny, don't get me wrong. But like, had I credit carded the guy by accident, she's the type of person that wouldn't have made like a funny joke. She'd have been like, I told him not to do it. And it's like, thanks.
Well,
what the hell?
just to be clear here, if credit carding's the right term, but this was not a slide. This was like a card with a chip that you just
Beep.
you directly
Insert 5 cents here.
This was not a slide.
Yeah,
it wasn't a slide. This was a card with a chip.
You didn't have to clinch.
It went straight in and came straight out.
Yeah, dang.
I know. Yeah, it could have hurt.
He'd be like, I thought that was until next week at the doctor's. Jesus.
So anyway, I know we're on to about an hour and a half now.
Yeah. I'm good with wrapping it up if you are.
I am, and next week I promise the Uncle Vern story from Alan, which is hilarious and along those same lines.
Sounds good. Well, to everyone out there who's still listening, we appreciate you staying along this far. Again, as always, please comment. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like, any topics you want us to talk about. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, like, and share. Let everyone who may enjoy this know. Obviously, we're hoping to continue to grow and keep doing this. I'm having fun doing it. I think you're having fun doing it, Dad.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd like to just keep doing this week in and week out. But on that note, be safe, be smart, make good choices, and peace out. Love you, Dad.
Love you too, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.